Hey y'all, new day, new verse as we continue on into 1 Corinthians. Today we're picking up at chapter 7, verse 25, and we're continuing on to the end of the chapter. But before we get into it, Lord, just give me the words you would have. Put this the place it needs to be said, and just use this to build your kingdom, Lord God. That it would just bring your body together, that we would be able to just sing and rejoice before your heavenly throne, to call you King. For you are holy, 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 and worthy, worthy, worthy. In Jesus' name, amen. Verse 25. Now regarding your question about the young women who are not yet married, I do not have a command from the Lord for them, but the Lord in his mercy has given me wisdom that can be trusted, and I will share it with you. Because of the pressures of life, I think it is best to remain as you are. If you have a wife, do not seek to end the marriage. If you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. But if you do get married, it is not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. However, those who get married at this time will have troubles, and I'm trying to spare you those problems. But let me say this, dear brothers and sisters. The time that remains is very short. So from now on, those with wives should not focus only on their marriage. Those with husbands should not only focus on their marriage. Not in the text, just saying. Verse 30, Those who weep or who rejoice or who buy things should not be absorbed by their weepings or their joy or their possessions. Those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them. For this world, as we know it, will soon pass away. I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. His interests are divided. In the same way, a woman who is no longer married or who has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and in spirit. But a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. Not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best, with as few distractions as possible. But if a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly, and will inevitably give in to his passion, let him marry her as he wishes. It is not a sin. But if he has decided firmly not to marry, and there is no urgency, and he can control his passion, he does well not to marry. So the person who marries his fiancée does well, and the person who does not marry does well, or does even better. The wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. If her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but only if he loves the Lord. But in my opinion, it would be better for her to stay single, and I think I'm giving you counsel from God's Spirit when I say this. Now, I love this right here because, often, especially in the church community, we forget that this is a letter. It's a cyclical letter sent to the letters, or sent to the churches, starting with the church in Corinth. And usually these are passed around. There's a reason in the other letters it says, make sure this church hears it, make sure it gets to this church as well. It's not meant to be taken in these tiny little snippets. It's meant to be taken as the whole. And I recognize the whole breaking it out and doing it like with this. But the reason I reference that is because, we have access to the Bible, whether it be in apps, libraries, anywhere that we have access to them. If we have access to seeing, if you can see this video, you can access a Bible. And that's what I love, because there are even versions of just people reading the audio, just reading the Bible online and reading it in YouTube, just the audio versions of the Bible in different translations. You can find that here. And I love that fact. And it's why I want to reference it now, because we can take and listen to 1 Corinthians fully in its entirety. And when taking moments like this, in sections of it, on sections of instructions of marriage, it kind of goes counter to doing the snippet thing. How often it's like, it says here it's best not to marry. Well, okay, but that doesn't make it a commandment. And Paul himself says, no, it's not a commandment. And in fact, the reason that I went with the translation there, verse 726, or the pressures of life, is because in this translation, it's because of the present difficulties. Let's see, because of the present crises. because of the present crisis. And it's like, well, there's always going to be difficulty like that. We're in the end times. It started when Jesus was taken up. It's the now and the not yet. It's like, well, why hasn't it happened yet? Because God is patient. God is waiting for all of us to have the opportunity to be saved, to turn to Him, to chase after the one who chases after us. God is showing us that amazing amount of love. And I wanted to just take this for a moment because I've heard so many different things growing up, especially in Utah and other circles, where it's like, oh, the end all be all is focus is to be married and to have the house and the 2 cars and the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and blah, 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 blah. And that, well, this is the paradigm of what Christians are supposed to attain. It's like, but no, it's not. And I've seen in the other direction of going full, oh, well, we're never going to get married, we're never going to do this, we get to the point where we swear off the opposite gender to the point where we will not even talk to them. And it's like, it's a little extreme on that end too. Because, Paul worked hand in hand with Priscilla, with so many different women that helped build this up as we know it, the church today. So I think going the 2 extremes doesn't help anyone. And I love that's why Paul advises here, is that it's about the focus. The time is short. The time that remains is very short. He wrote that it was very short. How much shorter is it for us? That now in the period, we're getting closer and closer to the point where he's coming back as a thief in the night. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, so from now on, those with wives or husbands should not focus only on their marriage. And it occurs in there. Those who weep or who rejoice or who buy things should not be absorbed with their weeping. So don't think it's the end of the world. The joy, don't think that everything, don't be obsessed with trying to see the good or obsessed with seeing the bad or obsessed with buying things. Don't be obsessed with things that'll fade away. Be invested in what's real, what's lasting, what matters. The old earth will pass away. And the old heaven and earth will pass away. And his word remains constant. So all too often, we get to this point where we get obsessed with this version of what it's supposed to look like, and we don't realize it's like, no, we're not supposed to be trying to tell God what it looks like. We're receiving from God what He wants our lives to look like, because He's the one in charge. He's the shepherd. We're the sheep. So when we go off and have bad incidents, like, why do I have a bad feeling about it? Well, it's because you're going off in a way you're not supposed to. We're supposed to be His. We're supposed to be... I tried to resist the joke. I really did. But only because it was the low-hanging fruit of a joke. It's a fun one, though. Because we don't think about it. We don't think about what the text actually says and go for a minute. Wait. So the obsession isn't about getting married? No. Married, unmarried, that's an inconsequential thing. If you're getting married, you're going to have a bit more to it. There's a reason that you have this, if you're that unbelieving spouses, getting them saved through believing it and living it. There's a reason that he's talking about slavery and being free and character and time being short, all within this section, which the header is called Instruction on Marriage. So why are they putting it like that if that's not trying to get at something deeper? I think Paul is trying to get at something deeper. Because the headers and the chapters and all that didn't exist when he wrote it. It's just one continuous stream. And I think that's part of the point. God paid a high price for us. We don't get to argue over slave free and act as though one is better or one is worse. One is clearly better, and there's a reason that Paul says if you're a slave, and don't let that worry you, but if you get the chance to be free, take it. It's about going down deeper, going into character, down into lives that in the face of everything Job went through say God is still king. Instead of acting like the secular world or Job's wife and going, well, just curse God and die already. Pass. I'm going to say this crap sucks. But there's a book for that too. It's called Lamentations. The focus is not about the marriage or the not being married or getting married or anything like that. Do you want to live as a monk? Good for you. If you want to be with that one person and you burn with them with desire, and Paul has an answer for that too. The point of it, right there, the crux of it, The time that remains is very short. From now on, those with wives or husbands should not only focus on their marriage. It's got to be focused on God. The devotion to God is what changes those who are unbelieving to see, oh wow, He really has made you different. Wait, you're now trying to make peace where you would have once always made war? Wow, He really has made you different. Yeah. Wait, you see joy in places where it was always sorrow? Wow, He really has given you a different way of seeing it. But it's not being obsessed and tied to the joy, and it's not being obsessed and tied to the sorrow any more than it is being obsessed or tied to things. I mean, there is a reason that in regard to Buddhists, they do understand something that the Western church doesn't necessarily. Don't be obsessed with things that aren't going to matter or be around. Am I saying they're right? No, only by in the name of the Lord Jesus. Like, the word says, those who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. I'm just borrowing one from C.S. Lewis when saying, hey, look, they got one right. They got right the fact that when you hold on to that crap, the stuff that is soon pass away, because for the world as we know it will soon pass away. Well, if the whole world as we know it, if the whole cosmos as we know it, are soon to be done away with, why do we get obsessed with earthly things? No more than that, why do we get obsessed with definitions of how we want to do things? Well, I don't have the job I want. I don't have the car I want. I don't have the bank account I want. I don't have. Not a whole lot of gratitude in those sentences. Not a whole lot of praise. In fact, it sounds more to me like testing in Mirama. Exodus, when they're complaining at the Lord and going, well, we don't have quail and we long for the cucumbers and the peaches of Egypt, and oh man, it was so amazing. You were beaten. Are you kidding me? You long for a place where you were like, talk about delusion. Oh, I don't have the things I want of this world. Why do you want the things of a world that's soon to pass away and is run by the evil one anyway? Are things nice to have? Yeah, sure. Is it good for them to have you? No, that's a sin. That's serving two masters. And that's where I don't really agree with the Buddhists in any way, shape, or form. You want to have stuff? Have it. God likes to bless His kids. Abraham had flocks and goats and herds and things galore. Job too. It's when those possessions have us. I talked Job and Job's wife earlier. She was obsessed with the things, the kids, the prestige, the power, the name, the title. She just wanted to curse God and die already. Job, who realized that it had nothing to do with any of those given things, since we come into this world with naked and with nothing, and we leave very much the same. We may dress up the dead here in the West and put nice little boxes around them and cute suits and things like that, but we enter the same way we leave. Bringing and carrying nothing except what the Lord has given us. But we get obsessed with thinking that we are going to somehow have a better version of it if we can just have the better job or the better life or well, I'm just going to make it better. But then how are you remaining as you are? How are you remaining as you are when God called you? And don't get me wrong, this isn't like stay where you are and never change. No. This is get into such an intimate relationship that God changes you. Because God had the conversation with Job before Job got all of his stuff at the end. And it wasn't a reward for putting up with all of it. It was because God in His infinite wisdom said, oh yeah, now Job should get more. Not a gift reward system. We're not Egyptian. It's not scales that you have to balance against your soul of the weight of a feather. It's surrender. And that's why our faith is so much more difficult, I think, because it's not just surrendering a bit, a thing. It's not, I give up my Sundays and I give up 2 hours a week here and 3 hours a week there and I hop up and down on one leg. No, that's religion. Christ wants all of us. Be ye perfect. He is not going to stop until we are perfected when we claim he is our king. The only point from that is if we decide whether or not we want to make our lives harder or more difficult by surrendering to him continually. Because he doesn't want a little bit of us. He doesn't want our Sundays or our Mondays or our Wednesdays at 3 p.m. He wants all of us. Everything. Because it's all his gift to us in the first place. The negative stuff that we go through is his place to turn into our good and his glory. So we get mad at God for using building. It's like, well, I don't like what this building material looks like. Let God build with it. Is this an easy thing to do? Oh, no. But our faith isn't called easy. We are called to walk, to take up our crosses and follow him. And that means that it's not liberty to do whatever we want. We understand we are bought with a high price, the highest of prices, and we are no longer our own. It is not us who live, but Christ who lives in us. And so that is the focus. So if you're married, yay, thank God that he has given you a partner. And if you're struggling with that partner, ask him to be in the middle and to strengthen what he has brought together. And if you don't want, thank God that you don't have to deal with those frustrations and that you can chase after him without the distraction. So the person who is married does well, and the person who doesn't marry does even better. It's exactly what Paul said. Because that's not the point. The point is chasing after God. You know, why is the Song of Songs in the Hebrew wisdom section? Or why is it counted as wisdom literature, rather? Well, because as we chase after wisdom, Proverbs, wisdom chases after us, songs. And that's why I'm not going to call it the Song of Solomon, because Solomon was a whore. Well, yeah, no, he traded his kingdom. Yeah, no, man whore. Like, by the end of it, sorry, go read Kings, don't blame me. Like, by the end of it, he was doing everything Deuteronomy says don't do. Like, don't blame me, go read. Like, so, maybe if we focus all of our lives on God, seeking first the kingdom, all really will be added to us. That's what Jesus said, seek first the kingdom and all shall be added. All this shall be added unto you. So why don't we believe him? I've got to get the marriage, or I've got to get the child, or I've got to get this, or I've got to get that, or I've got to get this. What about the Mary and Martha moment? Well, Lord, why don't you tell her to come into the kitchen and help me cook? Oh, Martha, Mary has seen what she has wanted and will not be taken from it. We don't live like that, though. We don't live like we would rather lose an arm than lose access to the Word. And so no wonder we have such an issue with Christian religion versus Christ-centered relationship. As Jesus himself said, if your arm causes you to sin, cut it off. Metaphorically, not literally. Yet we're so attached to things and moments and prestige and power and title and place that we don't think, what if this is causing me to sin? What if this is an idol? And if there's no conviction on it, don't go looking for it. There's a difference between conviction and guilt. God convicts, the enemy uses guilt. The time is short. Focus isn't the marriage. Focus isn't slave or free. Focus isn't American or Russian or Ukrainian or who gives a... It's all going to fade, so what's it matter? If they all become Babylon in the end, what's it matter? You work for the benefit of the Babylon you're in, and you stand on the word. It's the same today as when it was written. Same crises, same struggles. The secular world isn't exactly new. There are really no new ideas in the secular world. It just repeats. So why do we want to play with that insanity? If we know that time is very short and that the things of this world will pass away, that will be rolled up and put away as old garments, then why don't we think for a moment that He's the focus? Because there are things of this world that if we get called to stand in that place for, do it. Always do it. Like, God calls. We listen. Samuel, speak, your servant is listening. Judith, Mary, John. Put any name in there. Thackeray, even if you want. But any name in there. He calls, will we listen? He calls us to chase after Him and to be set apart. In character. In here. That our whole beings would be devoted to Him. Our instincts, our knee-jerk reactions, our emotions, our thoughts, our hearts, our minds, our bodies. Our whole beings. The very muchness and way of seeing things and doing things that He has given us, given to Him as an offering of praise. So we are able to love others as freely and as purely and as deeply as He loves us. Not some phony worldly love, but agape love. Self-sacrificial, other-centered love. Marriage is getting to learn that in hard mode. That's why Paul is trying to spare people the trial. Because it's a person that you can't run away from. They're with you to the end of the line. And you want that. It's more effort. And if God gives it, hooray. And if He doesn't, hooray, because it's not the focus. It's a gift. The focus is Him. And if the focus is not His kingdom first, we're not worshiping the right idol. We're worshiping an idol. We're not worshiping the right thing. We're worshiping Him. And even then, pardon the rant here for a moment. It's a little hot and I'm a bit ow. Because even then, it's focusing on Him. We pray, your kingdom come, your will be done. He brings His kingdom. We get to take part in it just by doing what He calls us to do. Living in surrender. So that we can be calm into a place of stillness enough to hear the still small voice. Because if we're holding on to 10,000 things in the world rattling in our skull, of course we're not going to be able to hear God. Of course we're not going to be able to just take a moment and go, which is something we desperately need to do. So that we can put the focus where it belongs. It's not on the it's not on the weeping. It's not on the joy. It's not on possessions. It's not on the wife. It's not on the husband. It's on how we can love in a way that shows who He is through us. At least that's what I've been seeing here. I'd love to know what you guys see too, because I don't want to be in an echo chamber in here or anywhere else. I want to see what other people have an offer. High church, low church, everything in between, because God has given us muchness that we can use to help each other out. So, little C Catholic, rejoice. I want to talk with each other. Let's talk. Let's get into the beauty of how God has set us apart. Not as a cast down, not as a look down, not as a point in your finger, but in the sense of, wow, He loves me even in the face of my screw-ups. He cares for me deeper than I can fathom, and He wants me. Doesn't need, wants. love like that, I have to show others and tell others and talk with more. So what do you guys think? In your day-to-day, why do you think that we don't see Christianity that lives in the hope that we have? Because I really do wonder, especially with Christmas coming up, what if we actually believed and lived and hoped like our King isn't baby Jesus, but our King is risen from the grave? It's not a little hope. It's resurrected truth. I don't know. Thoughts to think on as we go on into chapter 8 for next time, where Paul's going to talk about food sacrificed to idols. Because, there's a whole lot in here about how we do things the wrong way because we're obsessed with the wrong things. So we do things for the wrong reasons, and it all goes a horrible amok because our focus isn't God. Our focus isn't Jesus. Our focus isn't Him. So like Peter, we start looking at the wind and the waves of this world and we go into the drink. It's not a condemnation, it's an observation. And it's a hope in the deepest part of me that we can lean, reach out, help each other, build on His foundation. Everything else is shifting sand. I will talk to you guys more come Tuesday, God willing, as we go into chapter 8. His focus, the real focus on what to take away right at the end, is right there in verse 35. I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best, with as few distractions as possible. That's the aim. Because He's the point. I'll see you then.